Once upon a time in Sweden, a boy dreamed of making life more comfortable for his hardworking community. He envisioned a store filled with furnishings of good design, all impossibly low priced.
Like so many others, I had become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct.
Yes, I'd like to order the Erica Picari dust ruffles.
Please hold.
How's that coolant coming along? IKEA doesn't assemble itself, you know.
This thing rules. The thing rules.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Brian Altano.
And I'm Max Scoville.
This is a show where we discuss something we love,
Unpack why we love it,
explain where it came from,
try to remember our first impressions of it,
share our weird stories about it,
maybe learn something new about it along the way.
but first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that this thing rules.
Okay, so some assembly is required for this week's episode. We're talking about IKEA. Brian, what's an IKEA?
Well, it's good that there's two people here because generally we need two of us to lift this episode up, but also to build furniture. So IKEA is a Swedish furniture chain that also doubles as a cafeteria, playground, and just a maze.
It's kind of a labyrinth. I would say it's maybe one of the most popular labyrinths in modern times. But
besides like the David Bowie one, which we should do an episode on. Yeah.
Usually less puppets at an IKEA, but not no puppets. They do have a section that has puppets in it usually. No, IKEA is this bizarre Swedish chain that has become increasingly popular and ubiquitous. I remember the first time I went to one was probably in like late 90s, early 2000, and it was this whole like pilgrimage because like, I don't know. I remember seeing like weird catalogs kicking around. And this is, of course, the shit that you don't care about at all when you're 11 or 12 or whatever. My mom wanted to go buy some cheap furniture. And, the whole deal with IKEA is they sell stuff flat pack. They sell it, it's build it yourself. It's modular. So you go and you get the stuff in the boxes. I like that we're mansplaining IKEA. People typically know what an IKEA is. But it is sort of funny to kind of take a step back and go, okay, but how did this thing happen?
Right.
As an adult, I love it. Like I think it's kind of it can also be like a great recipe to get in a fight with your significant other to just go and just argue about wastebaskets and bathroom cabinets and shit. But like, I mean, you go and it's like vaguely theme parky, like it's got a whole shtick to it. You walk
environmental storytelling.
Yeah. You walk through all these weird little, life-size dioramas, these like play area, these like sets basically of what your apartment could look like if you bought entirely that apartment's furniture and also had taste and were good at things. But typically, you walk out of there with like maybe one or two things that you actually need. And then a bunch of like weird tidbits and bits and bobs of just other crap,
Yeah, I think what separates it from the usual, and like for transparency, we're both like old husbands and fathers who own homes, but have also lived in a variety of like small apartments and domiciles and such.
I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about it. It's modular in that it grows up with you. Like I remember buying like a cool lamp for my teenage bedroom and being like, "Hey, cool, this lamp is green. I like it." And they got as you get older, you get your own place. It's like you can go there and buy stuff that's relatively affordable, and I feel like generally, the alternative is getting like real cheapo shit from online, and it's an absolute pain in the ass to build and falls apart on you. And I don't know. I remember like, I think, IKEA does get it gets like a bad rep for being like for hard to put together. And once in a while that's the case. Like there's an old episode of Friends where they're basically building an IKEA shelf, and it's presented as this whole debacle, this whole like, this thing they can't figure out. And like, I feel like there's probably some shit like that in Rocko's Modern Life or something. But it's up there with that shtick of like two people trying to put up a tent, and it's presented as like, oh, this is so hard to do, and it's like, I don't know, man, it's not always. Some of them, it's
sort of I mean, obviously Legos are for adults, but it is kind of like grown up Legos or big size Legos.
100%.
Like there's a lot of like, you follow the steps, you insert the pegs into the knobs, into the rods. A lot of Allen wrenches get involved. They usually give you the worst Allen wrench in the world to build it, but it's competent, it's functional. Ideally, as an adult, you have at least one or two IKEA Allen wrenches from leftover projects. But also maybe you have a professional Allen wrench.
Use a drill. One. Get a little hex key for your drill and turn the settings down so it gives up real easily. So like a lot of people, the mistake they do is they take the drill and they crank it all the way up, and that just just is going to strip the bolts. It's going to, you know, blast a hole in your particle board shelf. You want it so that the drill, the second it gets a little bit of resistance, it goes, I don't want to do this, and it gives up on you.
And so, like, I don't know. I've had to buy furniture a ton of times since I moved out on my own, you know, decades ago, and a lot of that experience is pretty fucking miserable, frankly. Like, it's like going into places like Crate and Barrel, or you know, like,
dude, Crate and Barrel, despite the name sounding like, you know, shit that you would destroy in a video game by somersaulting into it or throw at Donkey Kong or whatever. Like, that place is so expensive. And
it's really expensive.
Shit's
it's
nice,
really,
but
it's really stuffy, and it doesn't have that sort of like lived-in video game a feel to it that IKEA does. It also doesn't dole out interesting shit to look at or actual literal treats like IKEA does. Like, that's the thing about IKEA, is that, like, just as you're like, I can't take another second of this, there's a cafeteria, right? But I think that, like, leading up to it, you know, IKEA furniture, in terms of, like, you know, obviously it's gotten more expensive since the pandemic, like most things. But to me, it was one of those things where it was, you could buy something that looked good and was mostly comfortable and was fairly easy to put together and pretty damn sturdy for a pretty cheap cost that made you feel like you were an adult before maybe you actually were.
No, I remember hearing, like, people say that it's, you know, the IKEA shit falls apart, and, like, I think our pal Anthony Carboni really nailed it. And it's like every piece of IKEA furniture has like 3 moves in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'll start to get, like, if you take it apart and put it together that many times, it's going to start to wobble a little bit. It's going to get a little bit jacked up. But, like, for the most part, their stuff is, like, you know, decently sturdy. There's also, I feel like there's different grades almost, where there's like the sort of entry level, you know, particle board stuff that you get for your dorm room or whatever. And then as you get older and you're like, oh, I want to get like a kitchen table that'll last me longer, they'll have, like, you know, one that's made of actual wood or metal or something, and it's better quality. But let's back up a little bit. I want to talk about, what is IKEA? What is it? Did you know it's an acronym?
I did not know that at all.
Did you think it was just like a word?
Yeah, because that store's whole thing is a thing, I think, is a word.
Yeah,
that isn't. It's like, you know, Flurgenstoff.
I looked up,
and it's a bed.
Like, IKEA word names explained, and it didn't give me shit. I think a lot of them are like named after places, but IKEA specifically is named after its founder, who is Ingvar Kamprad, and the farm he grew up, which is Elmtarid, and the village nearby of Agunnarid. And I'm probably butchering all of those, but ultimately you get Ingvar Kamprad Elmtarid Agunnarid, which sounds like some Skyrim Dragon Shout shit. But
yeah, that sounds like Army of the Dead or whatever.
Yeah, but the funny thing is that the little village, as of 2010, had a population of 220 people. So despite IKEA being the world's biggest furniture manufacturer as of 2008 and having 216,000 employees worldwide, this little town that is 1/4 of IKEA's acronym just has like 200 people living there, which is absolutely wild to me.
What's even weirder is that they're all like small drawings with huge cartoon triangles.
That's what they all look like. Yeah, they're
really
all two-dimensional black and white caricatures.
Yep, the guys you see in the IKEA instructions, they're based on real people.
Yeah, most of the people are either holding a hammer or they're holding a phone asking questions. They don't know what it's one or the other. You're either building it or you're calling it. Yeah, they got a bookshelf laying on a rug in front of them.
So is that one that he's like scratching his head? He's like, "What the fuck did I do?"
I love those guys.
He's got a cloud over him.
I had a great shirt for a minute that was it would look like an IKEA instructions, but it said Midsummer in like the IKEA font, and it had somebody building a bear costume basically. So that's great. Midsummer is a great movie. We'll talk about that some other time. But yeah, I don't know. I would say for the most part, Scandinavian culture isn't really something that gets. I don't really see a lot of, like, at least not in California. I'm sure in some parts of America it's more prevalent than others. But like, if you want to go find Swedish meatballs, IKEA is probably going to be the I don't know, the best bet, but the most easy to find bet, you know?
Yeah, it's odd because there's a restaurant in Sonoma County called Stockholm, and I went in there, and having known only like IKEA as like my, you know, I've been in Norway, but I haven't been to Sweden, and I went to this place, and they had Swedish meatballs. And they had a bunch of other like basically like attempt at Michelin star versions of IKEA cafeteria food, but also jars of candy. on the counter, and a lot of them were those like weird hard gummies that IKEA sells. And I was kind of like, oh, this is like you guys took the IKEA cafeteria experience and you like kind of gussied it up a little bit to varying degrees of success, but an interesting swing.
Yeah, I mean, they do the trademark, meatballs with the gravy, and then they get the potatoes and like the lingonberry sauce, but they'll also have like a decent cafeteria. That's a great thing, is because so much of when you go, on an excursion like that, whether it's with little kids or with significant others or just even by yourself, there's going to be probably a level of blood sugar problems you run into. Yeah. And it's kind of cool to have like a store that's like, hey, eat something first. Like there's almost like a the one that I go to mostly is like, I mean, they're all sort of different actually. I was actually looking at, apparently IKEA layout is generally delegated to the staff of particular, like it's not like a corporate mandate. I'm sure they have some style guide or some rules they have to follow, but the layout is sort of case by case, which is kind of neat. You don't really, I feel like you don't really hear that. Usually you have some, asshole from corporate who comes by with like a 3-ring binder and points at stuff and bosses everyone around. Could be totally wrong about that. But yeah, I mean, basically you go through the labyrinth on the top floor and you look at a bunch of sort of showrooms of different rooms. Basically you look at all the different, configurations, and you get an idea of what this stuff could look like in an actual, part of an actual living space. And then at the end of that, you're supposed to go downstairs, but right before that, you can go in the cafeteria and get meatballs. And suddenly you and whoever you're there with are less likely to kill each other or have a temper tantrum. And then you go downstairs and you get to like find all that shit. And that part looks more like a store. And then on the way out, you go and you have to look through the big Indiana Jones warehouse and find the actual item that you thought you were going to find. And half the time it's out of stock or you can't reach it or it's a really fascinating experience because like the way you describe the layout is spot on. It sort of varies from store to store. And if you've been to more than one of them, you get a little confused. What isn't confusing is that the upstairs has a sort of designated flow to it. And I think that like a lot of people don't really sort of like Costco has the same thing, right? Where there's a sort of natural flow from the front door around in a big U shape until you get to the outside, and you can dabble in the middle and get books and wine or whatever. But IKEA is kind of the same way. And every now and then somebody with like a huge shopping cart or like two of those big bags that they sell you that most people just use for laundry forever afterwards, it goes the wrong way in that store, and it feels like they're lost, it feels like they're in some fever dream version of a house. But I really love the cafeteria for the reason specifically you just said. It breaks up the flow, and gives you food. But also like in America, outside of being in high school or middle school, we don't really have a lot of restaurant experiences here where you get a tray and you move it down this like sort of metal conveyor belt and you pick different items that you want. Like, I don't know about you, but like after high school, that's not something I really get to do anymore. And when I did it in high school, it was on a budget of like $4. So you'd be like, oh, I get the burgers, the fries, and I guess chocolate milk. That's a really good point.
There's my money
about that.
Yeah, we have a lot of fast casual style restaurants here in America. Even that place Stockholm I mentioned, like they make you pay at the counter and then you go down, and if you want to get like another drink, you have to go back up and all that. But most places
I want to say that's a European thing. We wound up in that like German department store and they had a similar deal.
Yeah,
it's funny
we just
like,
don't have that here.
You either have like you either have a buffet or you have a counter, and I feel like there's a kind of mix of both there, but
and a buffet you just pay at the end or you pay at the beginning or whatever. And IKEA, like you can just go up, you can be like, I want garlic bread and salmon and meatballs and an advent calendar full of chocolate.
I love
like
it.
There's just all this fun stuff. You could get coffee and hot chocolate, and there's kids meals and stuff like that, and like they have healthy stuff. But I genuinely love the Swedish meatballs. Like there was a rumor a couple of years back about how they were made of horse, and I was like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if that's really going to change my relationship with them that much.
That was a whole thing. We're going to get into the stuff that all the times IKEA's gotten in trouble and the things they've done that do not rule, because there's a few of those, but. Again, it's a company that's been around for, since 1943. Like it's been through some shit. And also, I don't know, it's a massive global corporation. I'm not about to go to bat for them, but at the same time, that's a lot of moving parts, Yeah. I'm sure there's some assholes in there for sure, but it's, yeah. As for the stuff they actually have there, I looked into it. The most popular item, I feel like you probably have one in your home, a Billy bookcase.
Yeah.
Do you have a Billy bookcase?
I think I did have a Billy bookcase. Oh, you know what? I turned a Billy bookcase into like a TV stand during a move, and basically just like it came apart in the middle, I think, and I put my TV on it in my office now. So yeah, and I had the you mentioned the thing about Anthony Carboni saying how long something can move. Anthony Gallegos is, to this day, the only non-moving company person I've ever asked to help me move. Generally, I think I've accumulated enough shit at this point where I don't ask friends for help anymore. I just call professional movers, right? And I've done that a few years ago. Hopefully I don't have to move for a while. But Anthony Gallegos, former Comedy Button co-host, or host actually, helped me move out of an apartment once that I literally just had IKEA furniture and a bed that we couldn't fit out the door. I don't know how they got it in the door, but that was the one where like no, it was a couch. We got the couch out the window, and he was like standing on the back of his truck with his arms up like this, like, you know, in Looney Tunes, like when Wile E. Coyote's waiting for the anvil shadow to land on him. And he helped me get this thing down. And I got this amazing entertainment center from IKEA that had these like glass sliding doors on it, which I love so much. And it survived like 5 moves now somehow, except for the one glass panel on the right side like hiccups and get stuck every single time, specifically because I was like in there with him and I was like, hey man, so I'll grab this side, you grab that side, and just watch the glass door. And he goes, it'll be fine, man. It doesn't matter. I hear him say that every time I go to open that door to put something in there, and it just like wobbles back and it swings, you know, like I just hear him say that, and so
we have one of those. We have one of those modular like PAX closet systems, where you basically those ones are fucked up because like it's not like there's a default one. You have to build one. Like you have to kit it out like it's a character you're creating or whatever. And we did that to the best of our abilities and tried to anticipate how we're actually going to use it. We're not the type of organized people who are able to actually figure that out in advance. So we're kind of like, yeah, we'll have like a large square compartment where we'll keep 18 beach towels. Sure, why not? And I think for a while it was like basically the equivalent of like my dresser in our bedroom. And then we shuffled our house around, moved things around. And I had to disassemble this entire fucking thing, which is basically the size of maybe 3 refrigerators next to each other. Yeah. And I just had to completely take it apart. And I built it in the room that it was in. It was like that prank where you take a car apart and put it on the roof and put it back together or whatever. Like, I basically had to do that with a giant, like wardrobe or whatever. And I remember what I was doing, and I was like swearing and just like, I was like dripping sweat and just trying to put this thing together. And my wife got mad at me for getting too mad at it. And she was like, you need to stop. And this is before we had kids. So like, what the fuck, who cares? Fuck you, get out. I was being like like a Tasmanian devil about it. And she just got like, she's like, you need to cool it. I was like, why are you here? I'm fighting furniture. But I remember we finished it. It was all perfect. And I was like, all right, dust my hands. And then one screw fell out. And I was like, I don't know, where is that supposed to go? And we're like, looked around, trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out. And it was all fine for a second. And now, and for years previously, and of course I got rid of the screw between then and this happening. When you open the door one direction, it sounds like a TIE fighter. It was like, which is great if I need to get out like a sheet or something and my kid is asleep 20 feet away. So that's a fun thing. And I'm actually like, I ultimately like it as a fixture, but I wish I could move it, but I don't ever want to do that again.
Oh my God.
So it's kind of just a cursed item, it's like just a evil sarcophagus. We
both have this, it's called a day bed that we got from IKEA that we bought. My wife, I took her. So we had 2 key moments in IKEA, around the birth of our kid. And one was literally the day before my daughter was born. We went to IKEA in Emeryville, and then after that, we went to this place in Walnut Creek that sells this thing called the Prego Pizza, which I think you guys went to also. Yeah,
dude, I love that. I did all the exact same. I pretty much just was like, "Hey, man, what's your father build? Like, copy your stats. What do you put your skill points?"
Well, no. So I'm in IKEA with my wife, and one of the few superpowers I have with her is that I have made her laugh to the point of almost pissing herself or actually peeing her pants a little bit, like 40 times. And a lot of those times we're in a car and she's driving and I just go on a tear and she starts laughing so hard and she's like, I'm gonna have to pull over to go to the bathroom. I'm gonna pee. And so I did this to her in the basement of IKEA, which is, like you said before, where all of the sort of like bespoke
that's a good place
home...
to pee though. There's less rugs.
Yeah, it's basic. Down the basement of IKEA is basically just like buckets of spoons and just random shit. There's just like stacks of. It's like all of the theme park elements gone, and it's just like, yeah, you're in the back.
You're backstage.
Yeah, you're backstage. And so we get down the escalator, and I grab a cart, and I don't remember what I was talking about. She is literally gave birth the next day. So we knew she was already a day or two late in having the kid. And she starts laughing so hard, she squatted down on the ground. And I was like, are you going to have this fucking kid in the basement of IKEA? Like, please don't have a fucking kid in the basement of IKEA. And so that happened. So then we went to this place that sells this pizza that is supposed to, it's got so many toppings on it, it's supposed to get the baby out of you quick. Mission accomplished. With the next morning we're at the hospital and the baby was out. But a couple months later, we moved and we were like, our kid isn't going to need a crib anymore because she's going to grow out of that. So we're going to get her this thing called a daybed. And I don't even know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. Like, any bed is a day bed if you take a nap, right? But
I think a day bed is like it's like a bed couch, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's got a back to it so you can sit on it. But it's also, it's smaller.
It's a terrible couch because it's incredibly deep.
It fails at being a couch and a bed.
And also, like, so this thing, its whole gimmick is that it's on these slats.
For anyone keeping track at home, this is the Hemnes daybed.
The Hemnes daybed. You pull out the bottom of it, assuming that it isn't on a carpet, in which case it's never opening for the rest of your life. But if it is, or if it's not, you pull out the bottom of it and it transforms into like a California king. Like, it turns into like a fucking huge thing, right? That is just, it would be really uncomfortable for a bunch of people, or it's like a big twin, you know, I guess. And then it's mostly comfortable for one person.
It's really the worst of both worlds. It's not a transformer. It's like one of the cars from Mask, you know,
yes.
Where it turns from a car to a car that's got wings on it. You're like, that's not really a big
like, not really.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's got these really high walls in it because it's meant for like kids, and you can buy this attachment to it so they don't roll out of it. And that the walls on it make it too big for like you or I to sleep in it. And so you can turn it into the king and then just sleep diagonal. It's just very cumbersome.
It's a large thing. The nice thing is it's got storage underneath. I can't believe anyone would make a podcast about IKEA. But anyway, you can pull the whole front out. It's got two twin mattresses that are like those little, they're like gym mats, you know?
They're not great.
They're
so
like,
on top of each other, they're okay.
Yeah, right.
So
you put them on top and it's basically, it forms like a kid's mattress. But again, it's like a little kid size thing. I can fit in there if I lie completely perfectly diagonally and my feet stick out the end a teeny bit, which is
it's very dumb.
Which is where I have to sleep if my kid has a bad dream or whatever. And
one thing you didn't copy on my stats was you did the smart thing. You bought yours pre-built, and so you saved money. Great. We all love money, but I'm not envious of you saving money. I'm envious of you saving the entire fucking day that it took me. Like, I watched the entire second season of Killing Eve, which was not good, while building that in my living room. And I was just like, I was just furious at it by the end. And then, we moved, to North Bay a couple years ago, and movers carried it into our house, and it weighs a fucking ton. They took it apart, put it back together, carried it into our house, and we didn't realize this, but they had they didn't put it back together the right way.
Oh no.
So our first night sleeping in our new house, we're like, oh my God, we're homeowners for the first time. This is amazing. What a struggle it's been to get here. This is so great. And my wife and I are just like laying next to each other in our bed that isn't IKEA. And we're like, this is amazing. This is the best feeling in the world. Good night, honey. I love you. And all of a sudden we hear, thump. And we're like, what was that? And I run into my daughter's room. She's just laying on the floor. And I'm like, she rolled out of this fucking bed. How is that even possible? Like, is this built on a ramp? And so I turn on the lights, and like this first thing I see underneath her light is a Ziploc baggie that's just full of screws that the movers had just taken out and put off to the side. And I'm like, oh, they put this girl on a skateboard ramp in her own bed, and she's literally rolling out of it. And by then we had moved off the thing on the side, because I was like, you're too big. You don't need it anymore. She was like 5 at that point. So yeah, that is like, and she still has it now, and I put books underneath it to flatten it out. That thing will not survive another move. There's no way in hell it'll survive another move. But for now, yes, it is a Hemna's day bed that will not transform, and cannot be moved ever again.
Well, okay, so I guess that's a good enough segue to talk about the things that IKEA did not rule. They did have another line of furniture. It was the Malm dresser, which killed 3 children.
Oh yeah.
It was the dresser that was basically top heavy enough that if you didn't mount it on the wall, it would tip over, which, you know, yeah, I cannot imagine a worse fucking tragedy happening, especially like because of a fucking piece of furniture. They recalled 29 million of these fucking things.
Jesus.
And I actually remember going shortly after this, not even paying attention to any of it. And it felt like buying, oh no, I feel like probably harder than buying a gun in America. I felt like buying weed, where they basically needed to like look at I had to sign a document, and I had to like they had to look at my ID. We had to go in this whole like cordoned off area. Like, it was weirdly high security for buying a dresser. And it was funny because it was certain pieces of furniture. I guess they were like, I don't know what tests they ran to figure out what furniture was powerful enough to kill a child. But if you bought any of those pieces, you would have to go and get basically like sign a massive waiver being like, I swear to God, I will wall mount this thing. I will make sure I will keep children away from it at all costs. But
after that happened, basically anything that was like taller than 2 feet, they would sell it with these like this belt system that you had to like basically bracket to your wall. So like luckily this happened. I think most of this happened before my kid was born. So by the time we started getting stuff for her, everything came with these like bolts and brackets and all this other stuff. And still, it's fucking terrifying because like there's a bookshelf in her room that's filled to the brim because she's a kid, and kids just constantly accumulate books. And it's like 8 feet tall and like a 1.5 feet wide. And ever since a very young age, I had to be like, not a ladder. Don't climb it. Yeah. Don't climb this. Don't go up there.
Well, that's the weird thing about childproofing in kids is like, not all kids are going to do that. I was under the impression that anything that had a label on it that was like, keep away from, like, if you hand a toy that is like, has small enough parts that it has to be like an under 4 label, the child will immediately try to eat it. Or like, if you let them anywhere near a 5-gallon bucket, they're just going to swan dive into it and get stuck. Anything like that. But then you look at it like, most adults are not like, there's my hair dryer, time to use it in the shower. You know, like most people don't immediately jump to doing the thing that the warning label is. And again, some kids
most of the warning labels exist because adults did. Like there's like the reason they had to put on like lawnmowers, like, don't pick this up to trim your hedges.
Some adults,
some guy was like, whoa, just, his arms.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the noise he made, but you
probably couldn't hear him over the lawnmower chopping off his fucking arms. But I don't know, the whole childproofing thing. Like, we got all these like dumb little doodads and accoutrement, like little fake plugs you put over your regular plugs, and like little like domes you put over them, and like. My kid never did any of this. She just didn't go near it. She didn't try it. So like, I definitely have, I don't know, probably a bunch of furniture that is recklessly not attached to the wall, and I should probably fix that. But yeah, I don't, it's a weird thing. We're getting in the weeds here, but the point is they definitely, anything. I will say this. The IKEA Malm dresser has definitely killed less children than most automobiles, or really all automobiles, I would say. There's plenty of stuff that'll kill you if you're not careful. But
that's not really a fair competition. You're saying one dresser versus all cars?
I'm not saying they should fight each other. I'm just saying, like, things are unsafe if you use them unsafely. Like, and that's, anyway, the Malm dresser has been sent to IKEA jail. I don't think they sell it anymore. They bought back like 29 million of them or whatever, which is an insane number to even comprehend. We touched on this. The biggest IKEA is in Pasay City in the Philippines, and it is 65,000 square meters, which is about 12 football fields. IKEAs are generally pretty big. Like, they're generally very large businesses. and there's a lot of floor space there. And they have a lot of that as warehouse space where they keep all this stuff flat packed. If they brought back 29 million dressers that were fully assembled, where did they put them? What did they, I mean, I imagine they probably just threw them out or destroyed them or whatever. But even so, like, okay, picture one dresser, right?
Yeah.
Okay, picture 5 dressers. You were with me here? Picture 10. Picture more and more of these dressers until you reach 29 million.
You're gonna kill me. You're gonna kill me.
That's a lot of fucking dressers.
So there's this weird thing at the end of IKEA where it turns into a store again, like a regular store. So like IKEA goes from the showroom that's a store where you can't really buy much to the pit, which is like, you know, it's dark down there. The basement, they've got spoons and shit and buckets.
It's dark down there except for the lighting section, which is a wonderful place.
Which is, yeah. I always want to get that big, there's that light that
the
you
one
pull
that
on, it
explodes.
turns into a Death Star.
Yeah, it's so good. Death Star lamp. Yeah.
Dude, every time I'm always like, honey, can we get the Death Star lamp? And she's like, no. I love that we both went there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. It's probably a shit light. Like, it doesn't give you any good light in there. It's in a room full of like 600 lamps. So you're like, it's gotta be bright, right?
Yeah, they actually, they had to recall that one too because it kept falling on kids because they kept pulling on it to make it explode. No, not really. But I love that it's like, I don't want my kids touching the lamp. Anyway, here's one that has an action feature.
So then you go into the warehouse where you're like, G27. Who's got G27? Yeah. And then you go through that. And then at the very end, there's the cash register. But before the cash register, there's a couple of aisles where they have freezers where you get meatballs and stuff like that. And then after that is
hot dogs,
a concession stand. But before the cash register and after the It Belongs in a Museum is this weird little side room of just like broken nonsense.
Oh, the island of misfit furniture.
Yeah, it's this island of it's half fucked up, jacked up shit that some guy broke and tried to return. It's 3-legged tables and TV stands that, you know, could never hold the TV again. So my theory, and they do have a couple of just like big bins there where you can just buy wood. You can just buy pieces of like their weird, like their wood is like, it's like what real wood is to IKEA wood is kind of like what potatoes are to Pringles. Like, you know how Pringles are just like, it just feels like somebody took a bunch of potato chips and then just like crushed them to smithereens and then reformed them into something else. So they have these buckets there where you can just be like, hey honey, can you do me a favor? Just grab me like one, you know, slat of IKEA wood. And every now and then, like I'll need one of those things for something. Like I literally have one in my office now. And like, it's, you know, it's been finished and stuff like that. And I have it like, I have this one of those triangular desks and I have one in the middle and it's on my keyboard and it's just there. And it was like $1.50 and I've used it for like 7 years and it makes no fucking sense. But there it is.
That's great.
And so my theory is they took all the Malms, they took them apart and little by little, they sold them piece by piece back into the system.
They actually combined them into one giant Malm, which is the that's the IKEA in the Philippines. That's all. You're inside 29 million dressers.
Just don't climb it.
Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned 3-legged tables because I looked up IKEA's most popular items of all time. And according to an Australian real estate site, I don't know, it's what came up in the search results. Number 1 is Billy Bookcase. Number 2 is those fucking blue bags, which has a name. It's Fratka. So
really?
The Fratka shopping bag. Yeah. Oh my God. Apparently Balenciaga released a lookalike version in 2017 that cost over $2,500, which I feel like is missing the mark, but hey, Balenciaga, do your thing. But that one's so funny to me because when you go in there, you get yellow bags and you put all your crap in there. And then when you leave, if you want your own bag, you have to buy a blue bag. So really the rare ones are the yellow ones, which are only available in store. You can only have those in store. So you have to steal them if you want them, which is tempting. 3-legged tables. The third best-selling IKEA item is the Love Backen coffee table, which I have one of these. I think we maybe had 2 at one point. They're like ridiculous. I think they cost like $25 or something. And it's this, it is an inexplicable shape. It has the surface is like the fake wood of a 5th grade desk. Like it's got that fake wood pattern. It's got the weird kind of black rubber bumper around the side. And it has 3 legs that screw on and they're pretty sturdy. They kind of look neat. It's vaguely mid-century modern looking. The shape of the table itself is the most indescribable shape. I would say it looks like an asymmetrical leaf or maybe like an ear. Like it's kind of ear shaped, I guess. Like it's
That's
curved
so
on one
odd.
part and then it's differently curved on the other. And it's the most annoying thing to find a place for if you have any other furniture. I think if you have like one chair and you put it next to it, it's cool. But if you have anything else nearby, having any sort of like putting it at any angle just doesn't work. So it either works completely or it works not at all.
Why is it so popular then? Or I guess it looks good in the store and then people bring it home and they're like, oh man.
I don't know. Also, I stand corrected. Apparently it's $79. So shit's going wild. But this thing has been around since 1956, which blew my mind because looking at it, I was like, well, that's some desperate attempt to recreate mid-century modern shit for, bougie millennials or whatever. But it's actually like the same stupid ass table they've been selling.
It's legit old.
Forever.
Yeah,
It's wild.
That's amazing. No, I have one of their coffee tables. I have two of their sort of like bedside end tables. And every couple of years, my wife and I will be like, we should upgrade our stuff and get something better. And then we'll go into like Crate and Barrel or some other ridiculously overpriced furniture store. And I'm like, there's no reason to do this. Like the things we have work perfectly fine. They look totally good. They're not scuffed up or anything like that. Functionally, they're great. And I could throw them in the trash and spend, $800, $900 on replacing them with similar items that are of better quality. But who gives a shit? Mm-hmm. At some point, I'm just kind of like, well, this is good enough, and good enough is fine forever. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. Yeah.
No, I want to dip into IKEA history a little bit more because there's some funny tidbits here.
Please do.
The founder, Ingvar Kamprad, was 17 when he founded IKEA, and he started out basically doing a mail away company that sold like little things like pens and watches and shit. And I don't know how you go from that to like desks, which is kind of a big leap there. But on this same article that talks about the inexplicably shaped table, it says that was one of the first flat pack items. And there was an IKEA designer in 1956 named Gillis Lundgren who would sell the coffee table out of the back of his car. So he would just have basically like a bunch of these weird crooked ass round shapes and then a bunch of like loose legs. And he would just be like, here you go, 3 legs. Fuck it. Fuck you. Great. Table needs 4 legs? No, it doesn't. It needs 3 legs. As long as it's shaped as stupid as hell. But that's wild to me. So I told you where the largest IKEA is. Mm-hmm. The smallest IKEA is open for discussion because what constitutes an IKEA is a little bit open to interpretation. If you're looking at actual physical floor space, there is one in Bali and there's one in Hong Kong that are both little tiny pop-ups. Like they're just like little things. You basically walk in there. It's like if you got a shareware demo of an IKEA. It's honestly, I feel like in terms of the sheer information you're getting, it's maybe like 4 pages of catalog, if that. It's just a bunch of little things on display, and you go in there. I don't really know how that works.
I'm always fascinated when they put an IKEA like in a major metropolitan area, because like so much of that hinges on fitting the big furniture into the back of your car. Like you can buy a lot of small stuff there, but like they put an IKEA in like the heart of San Francisco downtown.
So it's just a showroom. So
really?
They sell some of the items you can take home. Like you can buy like a watering can or a lantern or a pitcher or whatever. But as far as furniture, they just have it on display and they're like, here's an idea of what you can do. And if you want it, we'll deliver it to you. And they probably, I don't know, ship it out of the Emeryville warehouse. So in that sense, it's pretty smart. And also that place has a ridiculous food court. Like they were like, oh, we're across the street from Twitter headquarters. Better make this bougie as hell for tech bros. And so they have like a multi-story like food court where they have like, I don't know, they got like a curry up now. They got a bunch of there's a bunch of really good spots there. There's like a Chinese like spicy noodle spot. 2 bars. They have, one corner they got the Swedish stuff. They've got like a vegan hamburger joint or something. They do cooking classes. It's ridiculous. They have like a whole thing going on there. And again, this is something that I just am not used to seeing. Like we see, I feel like the narrative in a lot of sort of American company history is like the companies that do really well are the ones that, that do some big innovative thing and then play it really safe from there. Like they're like, we figured out the assembly line. Okay, we just make cars. Like we figured out how to make computers. We make 3 computers a year. But IKEA will be like in Sweden, they do insurance. And they also, you can also buy meatballs and a cat leash. Some of this, one thing that's crazy to me, just because it's an entirely different like skill set for anybody working there, is like Okay, furniture, fine, whatever. Lamps, all that bullshit, that's fine. They have a whole section of fake plants, which is cool. That's basically decorative stuff. Makes sense, right? If you keep going, they have real plants. And suddenly the amount of care required to uphold this part of the store, which is, again, it's all merchandise. It's all like stuff you're selling. I feel like the fake plants and the real plants and having them right next to each other, and you got to have somebody go in there and water them, but you've got water out now and you're going to cause water damage to the nice furniture. It's just the whole thing. It's just it's baffling to me. I don't get it. But yeah, so as far as small IKEAs go, there's the little ones in Bali and Hong Kong. Smaller than that, there is a vending machine in Switzerland that is an IKEA vending machine, and they have like lint rollers and light bulbs. Like they just
meatballs.
Probably. I'm gonna guess no. The only proof I could find was a very shitty low res picture of it, but that's exactly what it is. Even smaller than that, to prove a point about making good use of space, they apparently made like a micro IKEA storefront that was like a banner ad. That I think it's kind of like, again, that's not a store. That's just a portion of a web page. But they were like, look at this tiny little corner of this website has all this stuff in it. And it's like, okay, that's a cute idea. We see where you're coming from. But it's funny to me that something that can be so massive and sprawling like that can also, compartmentalize to, be this little teeny tiny thing. There was a really funny thing where, you know how they have like, on their app or whatever, you can design your own configurations of things. Like certain shit is like, you're like, oh, I'm going to build this 3-section bookcase or whatever. They had a couch that came out that didn't really have like a limitation on what sort of things you could dream up. And so people were making these, they were making like couch labyrinths. They were making these weird, like octopus shaped things that would just sort of branch off in different ways. Or they were making like it would be like a 200-foot wide square that has just couch on all sides, which is just not what that's for, but it's kind of funny. You can do that nonetheless.
No, I bought a sleeper sofa from them recently, which, is it's a transformer that's not great at either, but it's fine. And like the range of options I had from like something that was like really or fairly expensive and like gigantic and pretty high quality to something in the middle to something that just looked like a child drew the couch from Snick.
Oh my God.
Like there was this one where it's just like, instead of like it being this thing where you pull out the mattress underneath or whatever, I think you have like one of those transforming couch bed things too, right?
Yeah. The Free-Heighten.
The Frightener.
It's for the Frightener. Yeah.
Yeah. The Frightener. I forget which ones I got. I got the, it's this big gray one that basically turns from a couch to a bed just by pulling one part of it out and pushing one part of it back. But they sell this orange one that just basically just like vomits out. Like it just looks like someone doing a forward roll. Like it just fucking tumbles out and it's on the floor. And all the reviews are really great because a lot of them are like, this thing smells awful. Like it's just people like, super comfortable, love it. I've had it for a year, can't get rid of this fucking psychotic chemical smell. Like, okay,
that's bizarre.
I got the Alvdalen.
Wow.
And this is my first. I know this is an episode about how much they roll, but this is my first time ever getting something delivered from IKEA, because usually I just go and drive there and get it myself. And I read specifically the measurements on the packaging for this thing. And what's great about IKEA furniture is that you could buy a car there and it will fit in your car. Like the way they package it is just insane. But this thing, for some odd reason, was like, okay, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to fit this unless it's like, it's like going out the back door of my car and then it's halfway through the front seat. One of those things where like you just built a divide between you and your wife and you get in the car and you're like, we're in an argument. Like it would have been like that. And they were supposed to deliver it like right before we had some friends coming into town to stay over. And I got a call the morning of, and the guy was like, is this Brian? I'm like, yeah. He's like, did you order the Alvdalen couch? It's supposed to be delivered today, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, we didn't put it on the truck. I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, just sometimes you just forget to put it on the truck. And I was like, do you though? That's like the whole thing you guys have to do. It's like, what if you just like, you were a swimmer and sometimes you forgot to jump in the pool? Like it just, you guys are, you're truck guys, you're delivery guys. You put it in the truck and then you take it off the truck. Right. And I was like, all right, so when can I have this thing? And he's like, week and a half. And I'm like, that doesn't help me at all. I'm like, can you knock the delivery fee off? Because it was like $30. And he was like, nope. And I was
What?
like, oh, well, this sucks. And he's like, yeah, it happens. And I'm like, I don't think it does, though. I don't really think it does.
That's
so
bizarre.
It got here eventually. But yeah, it was very funny. Like, come on, what the hell? Where is this thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's IKEA. Your mileage may vary, your experience may vary. I'm not trying to go to bat for a big company that's not paying for it anyway.
Is the horse meatball thing real?
I tried to get into that. They got the meatballs seized at like the Turkish border or something. It's a whole thing. I think it got spun wildly out of proportion, but they like recalled the meatballs, and everyone was like, bring back the meatballs. They brought back new meatballs or whatever. But yeah, they have if you go to their Wikipedia, they have a whole bunch of different fucking hornet's nests that they've kicked. They obviously have been, I hate that I have to say obviously, but they have been accused of like illegal logging on multiple occasions. And there's plenty of people who are like, you make furniture out of wood, you keep cutting down trees. And it's like, that's sort of how that works. Don't have the best feeling about it. But at the same time, like as far as massive corporations go, I feel like they make a pretty valiant effort to try to do sustainable, reusable crap. Like they buy back stuff.
They do. Yeah, they
which
do.
is like, I can't think of really any other company that will actually buy back shit you bought from them, which feels like that's in a video game. You're probably not going to get a bunch back from it. But if you're like, you go to the Resident Evil merchant and he's like, what are you buying? What are you selling? And you're like, it's a Hemnes bookcase. It tried to kill me. And he's like, ah.
So IKEA basically denied that there was horse meat in their meatballs. But they did say, as soon as we received information from the Czech authorities, we stopped sales of the particular production batch, IKEA spokeswoman Ulva Magnuson told the Journal. Then, this is a great quote, our own checks have shown no traces of horse meat. Now, we must, of course, look into this further. That's such a look, man, I didn't put any fucking horse meat in it, but I guess I got to look for the horse meat now. Like, that's how that reads to me. Like, so yes, maybe it was there. This was in 2012, so or 2013. So
no, they also they got accused of spying on French employees, and this was like the regional IKEA French regime or whatever. They were worried I guess they were worried that people working there were like moles and were working for like anti-globalist eco-terrorist movements, and they were like, they're going to ruin all our bookcases, or they're going to not water the real plants and really water the fake plants and ruin everything. I don't know. And so they got caught like digging into like police dossiers or something which I don't, that's kind of that's a wild claim. So here's what I have in my notes. IKEA has been involved with some things that do not rule. Illegal logging, spying on French employees, horse meatballs, 3 child deaths and numerous injuries because of the Malm dresser tipping over, resulting in a recall of 29 million dressers, and the founder's ties to a Nazi sympathizer in like the 1950s, I guess, which I think he's since, I think that dude's probably dead by now, but yeah, he was like, that was a very dark time in my life. And I was like, all right, but it is... Yeah, again, like, I'm, not going to make excuses for him or anything. It's just kind of weird to be like, okay, like this massive furniture corporation, and it has that laundry list of shit that people have been mad at it for over the years. Just a lot to go on there. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you're a broke college kid and you want to buy a little bookcase or whatever, it's a pretty cool place to go. And if you're an adult with a kid, it's kind of a free theme park because they get to try out all the different chairs. And it's not your furniture, so if they get their feet on it, you might get some dirty looks. But one thing I wanted to touch on real quick is that as a gamer, IKEA is a great place to go because they have fake video game systems that they made up themselves, and their cardboard boxes are these plastic shells that are supposed to look like a fever dream version of a PS4. What are you talking about? You don't play the X-Board 630?
And they're really great. They also stock all of their bookshelves with real books and fake books. So it's really odd, but like specifically the one in Emeryville, which I've been to like 1,000 times, and it's near you, so you've been there even more. For a while there, had the official novelization of the 1989 film Batman. Just on every shelf. It made no sense. It was like every 6th book, and I was just like, how many of these did you get?
Where did
they
how
did you get so many?
My favorite was for a cool minute. They had iRobot in.
Oh yeah, Yeah.
And it was, I don't know how you say iRobot in Swedish, but it was like not iRobot. It was some other thing. So it was like Yo Robot, or I don't know.
They also have fake video game boxes on their shelves in like there's a lot of teen rooms in there and like gamer dens and stuff like that. They started selling like office chairs and gamer chairs a couple of years ago. And some of the games they have are The Last of Him, Breath of the Wind,
Oh my
Fighter
God.
Street, and Among Us.
I haven't been there recently enough. That's wild. So speaking of IKEA and video games, there is one other thing they did not rule, was send a cease and desist to an indie developer working on a game called The Store is Closed, which is a survival horror game that takes place in an IKEA. And you basically have to roam around those weird liminal spaces, the fake furniture, and you have to like smash the furniture to craft new items. Very funny idea. Really love that. And the IKEA was like, please do not do that. And so boo on them. I think there should be more. I think isn't there also like a soap opera that's been filmed covertly in an IKEA or something?
Oh, maybe. That sounds about right.
Yes,
you could probably get away with a lot there. I think you could probably live there for a while.
It's called IKEA Heights, and it was a 2009 comedic melodrama web series that was, I think it was filmed covertly inside the IKEA store in Burbank, California, which is really quite inspired. So
very good. Yeah. Nice way to be covert and then put IKEA in the title of your thing.
That's the move. But yeah,
Smartest criminals.
That is how we feel about a popular Swedish furniture store. If you had a good time listening to this show and you want to keep supporting it, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/this thing rules and kicking us $1 or $2. It would be, we'd really appreciate it. We honestly just joining over there helps us out. Leaving a nice review on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen, just engaging with the show however it works for you. We're on all the various social media networks. Go just do the thing, do the internet thing. If you're listening to this and you want to do anything to pay us back for talking about IKEA for 50 whole minutes, I don't know why you would, but if you do feel like it, just go and do what you can. Do everything.
And look, here's for this episode specifically, this is this week's This Thing Rules official pledge. If you kick us $1 or $2, we will spend that dollar at the food court.
We will buy one ice cream cone or one hot dog.
Yeah, because they are so cheap. Or those weird hard gummies. They're like wine gummies. They're great. They're odd.
You know what's
maybe I'll get some frozen salmon.
You can do that. I recommend getting the lingonberry syrup and making lingonberry martinis. They're a good time.
That's great.
And buy some cups while you're at it. Get some fancy cups. Put them in the cups. Make a nice carafe. IKEA. It's a place to go do shopping. The end. And now the very special part of the show where we thank our producers on Patreon for helping make this dumb thing possible. Paul Atienza, Caleb Hilliard, Billy McKendry, Donald Cole, Scott Davis, Chip Chunkling, Kevin Lemasurier, Josh Page, and Steve Cam. You all rule so much. Thank you for your support, and thank you to everybody else for listening or doing whatever.
I don't mind the Cunin. It's an improvement on the Herdal.
Please. Anything's an improvement over the Herdal. I'd have taken an Emnus or a Trisel over the Herdal. Oh, no, I didn't get excited till I saw the Kulin.